Jake Paul is on the warpath for trying to get MMA fighters paid more. At least that's what he's projecting, and that's the message that he always has, that he's on their side. Now, is he using that as just a little way to dig Dana White and keep that front and center in front of his face? So the story this past week was the sparring partner Jake Paul has had for the last 2 months said he made more money being paid by Jake Paul for sparring with him, getting him ready for this fight, than he made his entire career at Bellator. Okay, so that's a great headline and everything, but when you peel it back a little bit, the guy was 2-3. So it's not like he was a great fighter in Bellator. You got to win. You've got to have main events to make the real money. I have a very good friend who's a champion in Bellator. He earned it. He gets paid big bucks for a reason. This guy didn't. So here's my quick thoughts on Jake Paul and this whole topic for him, and then I'm going to turn it over to Paul and Phil here in just a second. And my advice for Jake Paul would be very careful when you're dealing with Dana White, because there's a difference between being what you are, Jake Paul, which is a master marketer, a good boxer, a very famous and popular person, but he's on a different level. Dana White is different. Dana White is a businessman. He's ruthless. He's powerful, and he doesn't give a damn about your following on YouTube. And I think this works for you, for what you're looking to accomplish in boxing, and you're using the topic of getting MMA fighters and UFC fighters paid more because you think they're grossly underpaid, but be very, very careful because you need Dana White. If he has to sign off anytime you want to fight these UFC fighters, and you can't fight boxers because boxing's dead. So I would equate almost this like a grizzly bear out in the wilderness. And a YouTube star is messing with the grizzly bear, and he's throwing rocks at him, and he's poking him with a stick, and he's shooting him in the eye with a squirt gun. Funny stuff, great content, but eventually that grizzly bear is going to peel back and backhand you and separate your face from your cranium if you're not careful. So my advice would be tread lightly around Dana White, because he's a good sport, and he's taking it for now. But he could put a stop to this pretty darn quickly. And I'll start with you, Paul. And when you watch this and you see what's going on, you've seen Jake Paul talk about this, how they only get 10% of the actual revenue that's driven in the UFC compared to like 50% in the NBA. What do you think his agenda is? Is this just another way to prop up his fights, turn himself into the spotlight on him in boxing? Or do you think he's really fighting for the fighters in the UFC?
If there's a business model component to this, like he wants to go kind of like the Oscar De La Hoya route or Floyd Mayweather, where he's maybe looking to end up in like the promotional game, then, I think it's a great strategy, because then, again, there's some sort of end game to it. If this is just an extension of building up his own brand, then that can end up, kind of biting him in the ass a little bit.
I've been in Dana White's office in Las Vegas. I spent a day with him one time, and I did a big story with him. He's just fascinating. I'm a big fan of Dana White and everything he's built with the UFC, but his office is truly unbelievable. When you go into his office, you know that they don't have an HR department at the UFC. Okay, that is the one thing that strikes you, because he's got this coffee table that has actual cocaine in it and drugs and a gun in it. I forgot what the details were of it, but it's an unbelievable little piece of art that represented maybe a big drug deal gone bad or something with a cartel or something. But there's a story behind everything. Very interesting artwork and whatnot. And Phil, you were in a sport where you didn't have a league. No one was paying you. You had to make sponsorships, prize money. It was you against everybody else. You either won or you didn't. What do you think UFC fighters, if you were hearing that they're making 10% and what they put on the line just to get into the ring and get into the octagon, what's your take on that?
First of all, I think he's finessing this whole situation. I mean, I think it's not a promotional game, like you're talking about, Paul. I actually think that he's just leveraging the hell out of these fighters that are maybe no longer relevant in the UFC, and just catapulting his own brand off of their likeness. At the end of the day, we'll have to see him lose for us to kind of figure out, like, okay, does this really help the UFC fighters?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I agree with you. There's no reason to poke the bear named Dana White. There is no freaking way, because, I mean, the man Dana White has already gone through wars. He's already gone through, major business deals and stuff like that. For all we know, the art of war could already be in his back pocket saying, like, okay, Jake, like, you keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. But I've got a million other ways to litigate against your ass. I got a million other ways to block other deals. But the good thing is that Dana is a highly competitive person, and I really applaud that, because he just welcomes the shit. Like, he just is like, come on, like, let's go.
And Paul does as well. And I think that I don't necessarily agree with the strategy, but it goes on brand with Jake and Logan Paul. They're going to keep staying relevant, and Dana White is that name. Kind of like how people, in the Trump days would go after Trump, it automatically moves your article up. Or your
absolutely. They did it to me in bodybuilding. Trust me. Like when they want to get their name up, they're going to mention Phil Heath in these bodybuilding circles and stuff. So I understand that personally, but on that level, I mean, we're talking about billion-dollar guys here. I mean, we're talking about like Dana White.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too is I think the topic that he's bringing up, because I bet you a lot of these UFC fighters are perfectly happy with what they make. I mean, some fighters that come from nothing and they're getting paid $10,000, $15,000, $25,000, whatever it is, and they know if they are more successful, they'll get paid more. But he's planting that seed in there that you're underpaid. It's almost like going into an Amazon warehouse and trying to start a union where people weren't thinking about it and thought, hey, I like the benefits, I like working for Amazon, but let me think about that. What, I'm not getting 5 weeks of paid vacation. My health benefits aren't this. I'm not getting that. You start thinking about what you don't have. And he's planted that seed that could grow and become a real problem for him. And here's what he's doing to Dana White. He's not just messing with him and trolling him. He's essentially saying that Dana White doesn't care about UFC fighters. And that's a very, very personal thing to say. And that is something that would get somebody pissed off very, very quickly and look to squash you if he possibly could.
And White's has that reputation. I mean, Liddell, right? Chuck Liddell. There's a lot of critics that say, hey, he should have never fought those last couple fights. Like you're not looking out for your guy. By putting him in the ring. White doesn't have that great reputation.
True, but that's a fine line to walk because you are running a business, right? And Chuck Liddell was the biggest star.
Absolutely.
You throw him out there and the pay-per-views just start ringing the cash register.
I mean, we all know, like, if you want to make it big, you go to UFC.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
You look at Conor McGregor. He started in UFC.
Yeah.
And he bitched and he moaned, with Dana and stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, he still worked with Dana to go figure out a path to where he could get paid more money. Because remember, back in the day, Conor was like, look, I need to get paid more money. Like, I'm producing. But he had the numbers.
Yeah.
See, it's very difficult where, you can't just expect just because you're a pro that you're automatically going to get signed to these contracts. You're not guaranteed shit. Like, you're not, like, you can't assume that anymore. We live in a society today where they're looking at your engagement on social media. They're looking at just your overall likeness. They have so many different algorithms and, data points that are going to tell the owner, like, hey, he's worth $50,000 for an appearance or $100,000 or whatever. I tell all the bodybuilders, same way I would tell a UFC guy, enhance your freaking likeness, show that you have some value outside of what your craft is, because that's what Jake Paul and Logan Paul did.
Then they'll pay you accordingly.
And then they'll pay you
The money will
accordingly.
come to you. It'll find you. By the way, if you were looking for something to do and Logan Paul started talking smack, started ripping up your centerfolds from back in the day when you're posing, he challenges you. Would you get in the ring? Would you start training for boxing, take 3 months and go in there and fight him?
I just think that's stupid. Like, you don't play boxing.
Yeah.
You just don't. Like, it's not an ego contest. That'd be like me saying, hey, come train with me and I'm going to put you through these workouts. You probably pull all kind of muscles and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I was actually, asked, hey, would you ever do like a celebrity boxing and this and that? I say, absolutely not, because I'm not going to disrespect the sport. Number one, like, you don't play boxing, you don't play MMA.
Yeah.
Like, this is a very high intense contact sport where someone could die.
True that, but here's the difference. Here's the difference. Right now, the Paul brothers are the most relevant thing in the entire sport of boxing. They are the number one reason people tune into boxing. I mean, Manny Pacquiao tried to get it going again at the age of 42. Who would pay for that crap?
But but then again, boxing needs to look at, hey, who are our guys right now? And actually have some type of conversation with some of these champions or up-and-comers and say, hey, look, we need to have a strategy session as to how, we can promote you. But it also comes with the athletes. The athletes have to establish some type of team to go to the powers that be in these organizations and say, hey, look, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna fight on short notice. I'm gonna fight here. I'm gonna fight there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna promote. I'm gonna do those appearances that the normal guy won't do. But I need backing. I need sponsors. I need.
Yeah, we've been saying that about boxing for a very long time. I think the number one thing they should do is look for a third Paul brother. See if they can find another one and start grafting into it.
Boxing's the most popular it's ever been. I mean, and that's a sad thing. but
because of Jake and
because of Logan Paul. Yeah. I mean, Klitschko is the last guy I kind of remember. I mean, besides Mayweather, of course. But
So are we going to expect Tyron to lose? Are we
so.
going in thinking that he's going to lose?
I'm going to say
Yeah,
this
I would
right
say.
now. I think Jake Paul's a legitimate boxer.
Yeah.
I think he's head and shoulders above his brother Logan. I think he's a tactician. I think he's getting great training. I think he's an outstanding boxer, and I think he's going to win. For the simple fact that Woodley is taking it for the paycheck and has no experience in boxing. You just don't learn boxing in a couple weeks.
So then what is the next move after that? Like, does he fight an actual real boxer after that?
I could tell you what I think it's going to be. Here is the end game as I see it for the Paul brothers, and I really firmly believe this. And
They fight each other.
Well, they've
see
made
that.
their headquarters down here. They're going to go through their list of here in Miami, here in South Florida, where we are. So they're going through their list of C-list MMA fighters, washed-up boxers, big names here and there, and they're going to keep winning. They might lose one here or there, or get a draw like they did with Mayweather, but they're going to be the number one thing in boxing. Now, look where the money's coming from. It's coming from Showtime. All right, so they're off that little app right now, and Jake Paul is backed by Showtime, just like Oscar De La Hoya or somebody back in the day. So here's how it's going to go down. These guys are both going to take about 5 more fights over the course of a year and a half or 2 years. Keep building this. Keep talking smack at the UFC, because ultimately Jake Paul doesn't need the UFC unless he only wants to fight Conor McGregor. This is leading to Jake versus Logan for 9 figures each. They will each make $100 million. It'll be the biggest thing. It'll be family against family. It'll be 3 months of buildup. And I think that's what's going to happen in a couple years.
And who doesn't want to watch that?
Everybody will pay for it and watch it.
Well, the formula is there, right? I mean, if we're already prophesizing it, it's probably already been talked about a couple years ago, and I could definitely see it happening. You know, unfortunately, I think the current boxers out there are not speaking out enough and saying, look, like, I want some of that. Let's make that happen.
Yeah.
The UFC guys that are taking these fights, at the end of the day, I mean, I respect their craft. I think they're all badasses, and I've met a lot of them. But I definitely believe that if you go ahead and fight these guys, it's not about, if you're doing a cash grab and you're going for that bag, make sure that you have like another 3 to 5 moves after that to, you know, whether it be writing books or whatever, because I don't see you ever going back to another boxing event, let alone another MMA event.
And you mentioned something earlier about like the athletes taking their own, kind of taking the own
Ownership for the brand. Yeah. essentially.
And while you were speaking, I went back to Rocky 3 and remember how, you know, Mr. T, Clubber Lang, you know, went after Rocky and kind of coerced him. And so if we're calling the Pauls like Rocky, you need, if other boxers that are actually serious and want to be on that pedestal, like, they have to come after them and then kind of make that name that they want to be.
But they don't want to do that
guy.
because they went through a different route to become a pro.
Yeah.
And, you know, they probably sit on their high horses like, look, man, I had 100 fights as an amateur and stuff like that to even, like, who am I? I don't want to go down to his level and stuff. When really, in all seriousness, we're dealing with an influencer game right now.
Yeah.
You got to just say, hey, woman, you know, like,
Listen, there's no boxer that's relevant. There's zero. We just came off the Olympics. Every other time we have an Olympiad, we fall in love with an American boxer. I couldn't tell you one if my life depended on it. There is no boxer out there that's going to move the needle whatsoever at all. Here's the difference. The Paul brothers are marketers who can really box. Okay, you have boxers that have no idea how to be marketers.
Yep.
So they're gonna grab all the spotlight right now, and they're interesting, and I'm rooting for them. You know, I hope Jake Paul wins. I think he's working hard and becoming a legitimate boxer, and I don't like it when guys think that they can just jump in there and hang with him. But I think it'll be entertaining, and I'll watch it. I watched the Logan Paul fight. I'll watch this one too.
yeah, I got to watch it.
Yeah.
How can you not?
So
Right?
I'll see you guys Sunday night.
See you Sunday night.
Hey, thanks so much for checking out that short clip from Sports Now with Tom Zenner. If you want to see another short clip, click right here. Or if you want to see the entire episode, click right here. Thanks for watching, everybody.